does all this matter? How could we convince the public to care about the performance of students overall and at the high end of the distribution? And here I just want to talk briefly about an important line of research that Rick Hanushek and Ludger Wussmann have been doing that essentially relied on pooling information from all the international assessments that have been conducted over the past 4 decades to try and generate comparable measures of student achievement for 50 different countries, for which they were also able to measure economic growth from 1960 to 2000. They're able to equate the information from the international assessments because the US actually has nobly participated in all of them. We may be gluttons for punishment, given that the news has not typically been good, but that allows, because we also have been maintaining our own longitudinal testing systems, we're able to equate performance on the different tests. And they then use that information on performance and on growth to estimate the relationship between student achievement and economic growth over this 40-year period. And when they do that, they want to control both for the initial level of economic development in the country, because less developed countries tend to grow more rapidly because of the phenomenon of catch-up growth. And they also want to control for the number of years of schooling, which has been the traditional way of measuring human capital stocks across countries. And the results, I have to say, are fairly striking. This is a scatter plot that shows you the bivariate relationships between those two variables, growth rates and test scores, after adjusting for those 2 other factors I mentioned earlier. That's the type of scatter plot I'm going to be showing you today, a way to represent 2 variable relationships after controlling for other factors. That's a correlation, the strength of which one doesn't often see in social scientific research, especially in research explaining economic growth rates, which tend to be something of a puzzle in many cases. So the countries that are performing at higher levels on these assessments do tend to grow much more rapidly. One way to think about it is just to ask, how big is the implied growth dividend from improving school quality? Based on their results, how much of a boost to the economy would it be to make some progress in this dimension? And they find that raising student achievement by half a standard deviation over 20 years, something that would be bring the United States not quite to the level of the highest performing countries on PISA, but in that ballpark, from its sort of below average ranking to in the top 5. If we did that over 20 years, gradually, it would increase the size of the economy by 36% over a 75-year horizon. Obviously, most of those benefits would be reaped downstream because the labor force needs to be replaced by new workers. But even so, that would amount to $41 trillion. The nice thing about these numbers is that they're huge. That even if they were off by a factor of 2 or even perhaps an order of magnitude because of concerns about whether the relationship is actually causal, it would still be important to push on this dimension. This would still be a lever that you'd want to push on. And so I think there's a lot to say for what we're talking about here. And the final thing that they've tried to address is very relevant to our discussion. Does it matter more in terms of economic growth, what we've been referring to, I think, as competitiveness, though it's not necessarily nations competing in a zero-sum way? Does it matter more the share of students that you have at very high levels of accomplishment or the share that you have at very low levels of accomplishment, bringing that down? And they find that both of those shares matter independently, that they're both important, but that there's no clear evidence that either of them is any more important.